uh, I would like to share some points on the life lessons that we can draw from the most famous pastime of Ajamila. So, before I start, I would like to offer my prayers. ओम अज्ञानतिमिरान्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः श्रीचैतन्यमनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूपकदा मह्यं ददाति स्वपदान्तिकं वन्देऽहं श्रीगुरुश्रीयुतपदकमलं श्रीगुरुं वैष्णवांश्च श्रीरूपं साग्रजातं सहगण रघुनाथान्वितं तं स्वजीवं साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजनसहितं श्रीकृष्णचैतन्यदेवं श्रीराधाकृष्णपादान् सहगणललित श्रीविशाखान्वितांश्च हे कृष्ण करुणा सिंधु दीन बंधु जगतपते गोपेश गोपिका कांता राधा कांता नमोस्तुते तप्त कांचन गौरांगी राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यस्य कृपा सिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितनां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्त वृंदा हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे। नमो विष्णुपादाय कृष्णप्रेष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते जय पताका स्वामी निति नमने नमः आचार्य पदाय निताय कृपाप्रदाय गौरकथाधामदाय नगर ग्रामतारिणे नमो विष्णुपादाय कृष्णप्रेष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदांत स्वामी निति नमने नमस्ते सारस्वते देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य देशतारिणे। So Hare Krishna. So here, before starting with the life lessons that we can draw from Ajamila's pastime, the specific question that Parikshit Maharaj asks Shukadev Goswami. So the context as to why Shukadev Goswami narrates the pastime of Ajamila. Just a second. Sorry. So the context as to why Shukadev Goswami narrates this pastime of Ajamila is because Parikshit Maharaj asks a specific question to Shukadev Goswami. So the question that Parikshit Maharaj asks to Shukadev Goswami is that he asks so he requests Sukadev Goswami to tell because he's concerned about all the living entities in this material world, and because he knows that Kali has already entered, and all the symptoms of Kali Yuga is been prevailing, where people are breaking their four regulative principles. And with this concern, he asks Shukadev Goswami as to how can people not go to the hellish planets and return back to the spiritual world. What is the means, or what is the mode by which people who perform sinful activities, in what way they can take up the holy name of the Lord and become a devotee, and what is the means by which they can go back to the spiritual world and not go to the hellish world. What is the means to that? When he asks Sukadev Goswami, because we know Parikshit Maharaj is an exalted Vaishnava, and the foremost quality of a Vaishnava is being Paradhukka Dukhi, because we can see the same quality in Prahlad Maharaj. When Narsimadev incarnates for Prahlad Maharaj, the Lord asks Prahlad Maharaj that at such a young age you have performed devotional service unto me. So I am very pleased with your act, and let's go back to the spiritual world. He offers he makes an offer to Prahlad Maharaj. When Lord tells this, Prahlad Maharaj replies telling that that Lord, I am not, doubtful about me returning back to the spiritual world. I am just concerned about the living entities who are involved in all these who have these demonic qualities in them and who are involved in such sinful activities. I am very concerned about them as to when will they come back to the spiritual world. So until all of them return back to the spiritual world, I will not come. So the same quality is being exhibited by Parikshit Maharaj, because he is an exalted devotee, and devotees are paradukha dukhi. With this concern for other living entities of going to the hellish planets and suffering there, because in the last Sunday's Bhagavatam class, His Grace Sarva Pavana Prabhu, he was very nicely explaining as to what is the treatment given in hellish planets, and a detailed description of the different types of hell. So since Parikshit Maharaj was so concerned about all the jivatmas suffering in this material world, he asks Shukadev Goswami to give a solution, and that is when Shukadev Goswami narrates this pastime of Ajamila. So this pastime of Ajamila, it comes in Canto 6, chapter 1 and 2 of Canto 6, speaks about the pastime of Ajamila. So I'll just try and read out the translation for that verse, which has been given by His Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada. So in Canto 6, Chapter 1, verse 56 and 57, it firstly it describes about Ajamila. So here Prabhupada lists all the qualities that Ajamila had. So the translation goes like this. In the beginning, this Brahmana named Ajamila studied all the Vedic literatures. He was he was a reservoir of good character, good conduct, and good qualities. Firmly established in executing all the Vedic injunctions, he was a very mild and gentle, and he kept his mind and senses under control. Furthermore, he was always truthful. He knew how to chant the Vedic mantras, and he was also very pure. Ajamila was very respectful to his spiritual master, the fire god, guests, and the elderly members of his household. Indeed, he was free from false prestige. He was upright, benevolent to all living entities, and well behaved. He would never speak nonsense or envy anyone. So here, Srila Prabhupada gives a brief description of the character that Ajamila had possessed. So he was such a learned Brahmana. So even in the class of Brahmanas, he was the most, he would come in the line of the most purest Brahmana that anybody could have seen. So his character was he had such an exalted characteristic. But he could recite the Vedic mantras. He used to perform devotional services, and as Prabhupada writes in his purport, he was even respectful to the other Vaishnavas, and even to his spiritual master. So we can see as to how Ajamila was such an exalted Brahmana, and he was engaged in devotional service of the Lord. And in spite of that, Ajamila had to, fall prey to the prostitute, and his life, took a 360-degree turn from how he was a devotee, and he fell prey to Maya. So for the first lesson that we can learn from this particular purport, the translation that Prabhupada has given. So, but it comes to Brahmana, when we tell Brahmana, so it is not that, somebody who has been born in a Brahmanical family, he becomes a Brahmana. So usually this example is stated time and again, that how a son of a doctor or a lawyer cannot become a doctor or a lawyer. So similarly, here the characteristics of Ajamila is being listed, and Prabhupada tells that a person who is being born in a Brahmana family, he doesn't become a Brahmana. Why is Prabhupada listing the characteristics is because he's emphasizing that only a person who possesses these qualities, who respects a spiritual master, the other Vaishnavas who, involves himself in the service of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, only he is known, only he can become a Brahmana. So a person who is born in the family of Brahmanas doesn't become a Brahmana until he gets all the characteristics of that Prabhupada has listed. So how do we get these qualities that Prabhupada has listed? Even in Bhagavad Gita, we can see that the Supreme Lord tells that a devotee has to possess 26 qualities. If he has to be called a devotee, then he has to, the Lord lists down the 26 qualities of a devotee. So, how do we possess all these quality, because we are still practicing devotees. So the senior Vaishnavas tell that one doesn't have to make an attempt to possess these Brahmanical qualities or any other good qualities. They tell, the senior Vaishnavas tell that if one starts rendering one, if one involves all his senses in satisfying the Supreme Lord, and how is the Supreme Lord satisfied? When one renders devotional service unto the Supreme Lord. So when all the senses of one is being engaged in the service of the Supreme Lord, then the Supreme Lord is being satisfied. Then it is said that when somebody performs devotional service, all the good qualities manifest in that person, and he even possesses those qualities of a demigod. So it is said that when somebody performs devotional service, he doesn't have to make an attempt to get in all the other qualities, acquire certain good qualities. He's being a when he performs when he performs devotional service, he's bestowed with all these qualities. So that is the first point, that one doesn't have to one doesn't become a Brahmana just by being born in a Brahmanical family. So who is a Brahmana? Prabhupada explains in so Prabhupada tells that a person who is a person who can be called as a Brahmana is Brahma janeti iti Brahmana. That means who knows the absolute truth, that the Supreme Lord that the Supreme Lord is our Supreme Father, that Krishna is our Supreme Father, and that we are his servants, and the Sambandha Gnan, that Jivera Swarupa Hoy Krishna Nityadas. So if we know that we are that the constitutional position of the entity is to serve the Supreme Lord, and only that person who knows that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, only he can become a Brahmana. So in this Brahmana, there are three classification that is being given. So first one is just a second, yeah. So first one is Gnani Brahmana. Gnani Brahmana is one who has the knowledge of the impersonal form of the Supreme Lord. So one who knows one who knows about the impersonal form of the Supreme Lord, he is known as Gnani Brahmana. And Yogi Brahmana is the person who knows the Paramatma aspect of the Lord, because in Bhagavad Gita, Lord tells that he's seated in everybody's heart, he's seated in everybody's heart, and he gives remembrance and forgetfulness. So in the in heart, the Lord is being seated as Paramatma, and one who knows this Paramatma feature of the Lord, who accepts the Paramatma feature of the Lord, he is known as Yogi Brahmana. And Vaishnava Brahmana is one who knows that the Krishna is the supreme personality of Godhead. That means he knows the Bhagavan form of the absolute truth. That that and he doesn't, I mean, he doesn't tell that the Lord doesn't have form. He doesn't believe in that impersonal feature of the Lord. So one who knows that Krishna is the supreme personality of Godhead, or the Bhagavan feature of the absolute truth, then he is known as a Vaishnava Brahmana. So Prabhupada, in his lectures, he used to always state that the main purpose for him in establishing the International Society for Krishna Consciousness is to create Brahmanas. And when he tells that he has to create Brahmanas, he meant Vaishnava Brahmanas who knows that Krishna is, who knows the Sambandha Jnana, and who knows that Krishna is the supreme personality of Godhead and what is our relationship with the Lord. So these were the three kinds of the three types of Brahmana that is being listed by Srila Prabhupada. So the first lesson, as I told, is to learn that how we have to acquire the characteristics of a Brahmana to be called one, and just being born as a Brahmana, one does not become a Brahmana. And we can see as to how Ajamila had possessed all these qualities. So once Ajamila, as we discussed, he is a Brahmana, and he was, performing various sacrifices. And so, for the same, he had been to the forest to collect some wood for his fire sacrifice. And when he had been to the forest, he happens to see a woman being associated with a Shudra. She was having an intimate relationship with a Shudra. And just by looking at this, Ajamila gets all the senses of Ajamila gets agitated, and how we know how he loses his senses, and he just gets out of control, and he marries that prostitute. So, from this particular instance wherein Ajamila had gone to, he had gone to collect wood for performing devotional service to the Lord, but somehow he falls prey to this entire scene of a prostitute associating with the Shudra. So, if this can be correlated with our own lives, because we are also, performing devotional service unto the Supreme Lord, and somehow, even without knowledge, we fall, prey to Maya. So, what can we understand from this particular incident that took place in Ajamila's life is that Ajamila was such an exalted person, even and he fell prey to Maya. So similarly, when we perform devotional service to the Lord, even we fall prey to Maya. The best example is that we would have gone to the social media for searching for the lectures to hear about Krishna, to have Krishna Katha, but we end up doing everything else on the platform of social media, except hearing about Krishna, except hearing to Krishna Katha. So in Ajamila's life, Maya came as a prostitute. So she put that picture of the prostitute enjoying with that Shudra, and that agitated Ajamila. So similarly, Maya comes in different forms, and she tests, this person is performing devotional service. And when one performs devotional service, Lord tells that you come back to my spiritual abode. So he tells that yadgatva nanivartante tadhamam paramam mama. So if you come back to my spiritual abode, then you will never come back to this material world. So when the Lord is assuring this, then Maya also, becomes a little concerned about who is going back to the spiritual world, and she puts it a checkpoint. And if somebody passes the checkpoint of Maya Devi, then he becomes eligible to go back to the spiritual world. So we have to understand that when Maya throws such situations at us, that Maya is also in the service of the Supreme Lord. She's just checking, even if I throw such situation, what will be the reaction of this person? Will this particular devotee be able to sustain it, or will he come out of the devotional service of the Supreme Lord? So she's just trying to test us. And we have to always choose Krishna, as how Varaha Prabhu was mentioning in his lecture, that she we always have two questions, that whether to choose Maya or whether to choose Krishna, and we are in the safest hands if we choose Krishna always. So we all and even Krishna, we have to be so careful about Maya, because Krishna himself is stating that Mama Maya Dhuratyaya, that he's stating that my energy, my external energy, that is in form of Maya Devi, she's very dangerous. So regarding this, Prabhupada once was telling that in front of all his disciples, he was stating he made a very strong comment, telling that Maya can never touch me. And once all his disciples heard it, they were all bewildered as to what is Prabhupada stating. And after a couple of days, they saw Srila Prabhupada, praying in front of the Supreme Lord. He was making intense prayers. So this disciple who was present when Prabhupada stated that Maya can never touch me, he asked Prabhupada as to what prayers was he making. And then Prabhupada reveals, telling that I was praying that I should not fall prey to Maya, and that I should always stay in the devotional service of the Supreme Lord. So we have to be very careful about Maya Devi, because sometimes we think we are chanting 16 rounds, we are performing devotional service, but Prabhupada sets an example by his own example, that he, being such an exalted person, he is praying to the lordships, that he doesn't fall in the hands of Maya, he doesn't fall prey to Maya. So even we have to always pray that we also don't become a prey to Maya Devi, and for get into fall in her trap. And what is the consequence of falling in her trap? Initially it looks very nice, very peaceful, that I very bliss we feel it very nice, that I am enjoying. But the more Maya starts showing her face, then we'll end up realizing that this is not what I want. This I don't want to come back to this material world, and come back to the cycle of birth and death. Our main aim should be going back to the spiritual world. And we have to see that we be fearful of Maya, so that we can perform our devotional services well. So coming back to the point as to how Ajamila fell prey to this entire picture that Maya Devi had presented of a prostitute having an intimate relationship with a Shudra. So when this happened, the he in Ajamila, in the mind of Ajamila, he started, all the lusty desires of Ajamila started coming out. So he fell prey to this prostitute, he the lusty desire in him came out, and as a result of it, Ajamila ended up marrying this prostitute, and he begot 10 children. So it is stated that when Ajamila had his 10th child, he was of age of 88 years. So even at that point of time, he forgot that he was getting old, and the lusty desires are so strong that they make us forget many things. So what happened to Ajamila is that when he fell prey to this entire incident, he was a brahmana and he was performing devotional service. So he didn't have much money and he had to maintain his prostitute wife. So in order to please her and to take care, because he had a big family, so it is not easy to take care of 10 children including his wife. So he started robbing people, and he was such an exalted devotee. From being a brahmana, he became a robber, and he was stealing people's jewels, robbing them, and the entire thing and the entire purpose why he was doing such an abominable act was to just satisfy his wife and his children. So when we can see that how Ajamila fell prey to his lusty desires, and he lost all his Brahmanical qualities. So we know how difficult it is to acquire all the characteristics of a Brahmana, and Ajamila had all of them and he lost it because he fell prey to his lusty desires. So we will try and see what happens if one falls as a prey to these lusty desires. So His Holiness Bhakti Bhakti Prachar Swami Maharaj, he gives these points. So I will try and share them. So the first one, he tells that when one falls prey to their lusty desires, it has three main effects. The first one is that lust makes one blind. So an appropriate pastime to this is, many of you would have heard, where it was the pastime of Chintamani, Bilva Mangala Thakur, and the pastime of Chintamani. So before Bilva Mangala Thakur, before Bilva Mangala Thakur got his name, he was known as Shilana, and same as how Ajamila was a Brahmana, even Shilana was a Brahmana, and he happens to see this prostitute called Chintamani. She was so beautiful that Shilana, like how Ajamila fell prey to his prostitute wife, he also fell prey. Shilana also fell as a prey to Chintamani, and he used to visit Chintamani every day. And once it so happened that Chintamani, in Shilana's house, his father he passes away, and he had to perform all that final rites to his father, and and that particular day, Chintamani thought that today Shilana would not come to meet me, because there is a death in his family, and it is more important that he is with his family. And it was raining heavily that day, so there would be no means for Shilana to come to her place. But when Shilana was performing his final rites to his father, even at that point of time, he's not worried that his father left the body, and he's not worried about anything. Only thought that is running in his mind is, how can I go back to Chintamani? He even tells the pujari who was performing all this that I have to leave, I have to go somewhere, so can we perform all the activities much faster? And he performs his activities, and he's now ready to leave to meet Chintamani. And there is a heavy downpour, and in order to meet Chintamani, he has to cross a river and go meet Chintamani. So there was no boat, and he finds a log of wood, and he takes that log of wood, he crosses the river, and he sees the doors of Chintamani's house is being locked. So he sees the window is being open, and he sees that there is a rope, and how he climbs the rope and reaches Chintamani. And when Chintamani looks at Shilana, she's all shocked. How did this person make it? How, I mean, and he asks, Shilana, as to how did you make it? How did you cross over the river? Because there was no boat. He tells, I found a log of wood. So, but that was not a log of wood, that was a dead body. And she asks him, how did you climb up through the window? He tells that I saw a rope, and through that I climbed up. And then Chintamani tells that it is not a rope, it is a snake. So how did, Shilana misunderstand, or how did he misinterpret the dead body to be a log of wood, and a snake to be rope? Because he fell prey to his lusty desire. So lust makes one go blind. So that is what we can learn from this pastime of Chintamani, and how later we know how he became an exalted devotee as Bilva Mangala Thakur. So, but the main point here is that how he fell prey to his lusty desires, and that lusty desire made him blind. So, the second effect is it takes away good association. So it takes away so we can see how Ajamila was, associating with the Supreme Lord, because the name, form, pastime, the activities of the Supreme Lord are non-different. So he was having such good association. He was having the association of his spiritual master, but once he fell prey to his lusty desires, he took away his good association. So another example it is being mentioned that is mentioned is of that of Kala Krishna Das. So Kala Krishna Das is an associate of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So Kala Krishna Das would, accompany Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in his South India tour. So when Kala Krishna Das was with Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and he was taking him through the entire South India yatra of Mahaprabhu. He was with Mahaprabhu, and in spite of that, he got attracted to a beautiful woman. And Kala Krishna Das went behind that woman, um, and like he fell prey to it. But the point is that Mahaprabhu got him back from back to his consciousness. He pulled him out. But the subject matter is that he got attracted to the beautiful feature of that woman, and Kala Krishna Das went behind that woman. This happened when Kala Krishna Das was in association of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is non different from Krishna, and he takes the mood of Radharani. And he comes down in order to spread the spread the love of God, that is Krishna Prema, to all the conditioned souls. In spite of that, Kala Krishna Das, in spite of having the association of the Supreme Lord, he fell prey to that beautiful woman, and he started going behind that woman. So we can understand that when we fall prey to our lusty desires, when sense gratification becomes our priority, at that point of time, these lusty desires takes away the good association. In spite of we having the association of our spiritual master, of all the exalted devotees, it takes away all of that. And finally it binds us to this material world, wherein we have to you know come back to this material world, take this repeated birth and death, come back to this process of repeated birth and death, and there would be no hope of going back to the spiritual world once the lusty desires are being once the lusty desires once we start getting these lusty desires, there's no hope of going back to the spiritual world. So there are many more lessons that we can draw, but for today I stop here, and I thank all of you for your patient listening, and Mathurapati Prabhu and Parabhakti Mataji for giving me this opportunity for my personal purification. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Just a moment. Okay. So thank you very much, Radha Sugopika Mataji, for your wonderful narration and also the various lessons learning from Ajamila pastimes. Yeah, actually, it is a second chance. A book